What's happening YouTube? My name is Alex and welcome to a new review. Well, if you like big phones, I may just have the phone for you. This is the Doogee Y6 MAX and this phone, it's massive. It has a 6.5 inches display and I have to say that this is the biggest phone that I have ever seen. Just so you have an idea how big this phone is, this is how it looks compared to my 8-inch tablet. So yeah, it is a very big phone. Compared to the other phones with 5.5-inch screens, this one feels and looks like a tablet, and it is very difficult to actually use this phone with one hand. It even has like a one-hand mode in the settings there, however, it is still difficult to actually use holding this phone in one hand. For specs, we have a MediaTek 6750 CPU. This is an octa-core CPU clocked at 1.5 GHz. We also have 3 GB of RAM, 32 GB of internal storage, a massive 4300 mAh battery, and the phone is running Android 6.0.1. For its size, the specs and the build quality, the phone is not that expensive, so it only costs about $150 at the time of this video. So for $150 we do get a lot of value. So first of all, the phone is made out of metal, so the entire back it's made out of metal, well, almost the entire back, because we have some antennas at the bottom and on top, and those parts are actually made out of plastic that looks like metal. Aside from that, we have a 13 megapixel camera, we have the flash and a fingerprint scanner. Like most phones that I tried lately, the fingerprint scanner it's accurate 99% of the time, so really accurate, but it is a bit slow to actually unlock the phone. We've seen this for a different phone a couple of days ago, so you can actually take pictures with the fingerprint scanner. So whenever you have the camera open, all you have to do is touch the fingerprint scanner and you can take pictures. And that could be useful if you like take selfies or anything like that, considering that the phone it's massive and it's very difficult to actually hold in one hand. Continuing to the sides of the phone, which are also made out of metal, on the right hand side you're going to find the power button and the volume keys. On top you're going to find the 3.5mm audio jack, and the sound coming out of the audio jack it's just average, so there isn't that much bass whenever you're listening music with some headphones. And on the other side you're going to find the slot for the SIM card. So you can use either two SIM cards or a SIM card and an SD card. Then of course we have Android 6.0.1 installed on this phone, so you can easily install an SD card as internal storage. As for the internal storage, out of the 32 gigs of internal storage that we get, we actually have about 25 left, but the speeds that I got for the internal storage are very good. And just like most phones these days, at the bottom we have what looks to be like two speakers. However, only one of them is a speaker, the other one is actually a microphone. And in between we have a micro USB charging port. This phone supports OTG, so you can plug in any USB stick and the phone will be able to read whatever you have on that USB stick. But it is very slow for charging, so that massive 4300 mAh battery is going to take you over 3 hours to fully charge. As for the speaker, considering the size of the phone, I was actually expecting that the speaker would sound better, but here is a sample of how the speaker sounds. And since this is related to charging, inside this phone we have a 4300 mAh battery, and that's a very big battery, so I was able to get about 6 hours of screen on time and about 12 hours on the phone, so you'll definitely make it through an entire day on one battery charge. Moving on the front of the phone, starting at the top there, you're gonna find the 5 megapixel front facing camera, you're gonna find the speaker and a couple of sensors, but we don't have a notification light. The front-facing camera, as you're probably expecting, it's not the absolute best. So if you have a lot of light, the pictures do turn out okay, but if you don't have enough light, the pictures turn out quite blurry and you can't really see anything in the pictures. And these are a couple of sample pictures that I took with this phone. The 6.5-inch screen has a resolution of 1080p. The viewing angles are decent, not the absolute best that I've seen. The colors are nice and vibrant and the screen does seem to get quite bright. However, there is a lot of reflection and glare on this phone. So even here inside the house it is a bit difficult to see the screen if you have a lot of lights on. If you're gonna go outside in bright daylight, yeah, it's gonna be even more difficult to actually see the screen. So the screen, even though it's nice and it's big, well, it's not the best quality. The screen sensitivity is also average and you can touch the screen in 5 places and the screen will register, so that's useful whenever you're playing games. And the good thing about this screen is the fact that we have some type of scratch resistant glass covering the screen, and I tried to scratch it and it doesn't actually seem to get scratched. And moving all the way at the bottom of the screen, we have 3 buttons that don't light up. Unfortunately, the buttons aren't as you're used to, like a multitasking button, a home button and a return key. they decide to use the multitasking button as a menu button, and that is a bit annoying and confusing. So in order to get into multitasking, you actually have to hold down the home button, and that could become confusing whenever you're trying to switch in between apps. So I definitely wish they would have a way to actually having those buttons like a normal Android device. Performance-wise, we get some really good scores on the Antutu benchmark and the Geekbench 4, and I have to be honest, I wasn't actually expecting to get these scores from this CPU. This CPU, it's not that widely used, so we don't really get to see it in action that often. For apps, most apps will work pretty good. So for example, Chrome works fairly good. You can zoom in, zoom out, scroll up, scroll down without any issues. The YouTube app works at a maximum resolution of 1080p. However, I didn't find most videos to go smooth, so there is some lag for some of the videos, and I'm not sure why that's happening. For gaming, since we have such an awesome big screens, gaming is really nice on this phone, so most games will do just fine. So pretty much any game that you're gonna download from the Google Play Store, there is a good chance that it's gonna work fairly good on this phone. So it's awesome for gaming. The GPS unit inside this phone, it's rather disappointing, so it takes a long time to actually connect to the satellites, and after it's connected, depending how you move and where you are, it tends to get disconnected. So the GPS unit inside this phone, it's not that great. As for sensors, we don't have that many sensors, however we do have the gyroscope available, and that could be useful for a whole bunch of games. So at least we have the gyroscope if nothing else. As for connectivity, the phone should be able to connect to the 4G networks here in Canada. However, I was not able to connect to the 4G networks. I was only able to connect to the 3G networks. I'm not sure what the issue is, but at this time I can say if 4G connectivity actually works. For Wi-Fi, we also have dual band Wi-Fi, and the speeds that I got over Wi-Fi and of course over the 3G network are on par with pretty much all the other devices that I tried. Even though it looks a bit awkward making phone calls on this because it's quite large, I haven't had any issues with the call quality, so the speaker on top here, it's quite loud and everybody was able to hear me properly. The phone's UI, it's based on Android 6.0.1, but I have to say that I'm quite disappointed about the launcher that they chose to use for this phone. Every simple task that would normally take you like 1 second to do, it takes about 10 seconds on this phone. So even changing the wallpaper, you actually have to go to the settings app and change the wallpaper from there. So it's a bit difficult to use. Aside from that, we don't even have an app drawer. So if you have like 300 apps installed on this phone, well, you're gonna have to scroll through a whole bunch of pages. So yeah, the launcher, it's not my favorite on this phone. However, the phone has a couple of features that are actually useful. So the first one will be the double tap to wake up the screen, and that one works 10 out of 10 times. I haven't had any issues with it. The next one will be the one-handed mode on the phone, and that is useful because this is a huge phone. You can move that to either the left side or the right-hand side of the phone, depending what hand you use. But again, it is difficult to hold this phone in one hand. And my favorite one, it's the one where you can actually record the screen. And the last phone that I've seen with that feature was the OnePlus One, I believe. So yeah, you can definitely record the screen if you like do some gaming or something like that. You can just record the screen and then you can upload your recording right on YouTube. So it's a very useful feature for that I haven't seen for other phones. And moving to the settings app. So the settings app, it's not that simple as you've seen on previous Android devices. This one, it's actually missing quite a few settings in there. So for example, there is no way to actually change your network preference. So from 3G to 4G, that feature, that setting, basically it's missing altogether from the settings app. And that is a bit strange. Aside from that, the about of the phone, it's normal. You can see the CPU, the RAM and so on. And we do have a whole bunch of languages available, but this is quite normal for most Android devices from China. On the back of the phone, there is a 13 megapixel camera, and this is probably the exact same camera that we've seen for other devices from China in the past. The camera app looks average, and it's the same camera app we've seen for other MediaTek devices. We do have some settings in there, and supposedly the camera has image stabilization, electronic image stabilization, but I haven't found that it makes a difference whenever that's on or off. So yeah, I think it's just a gimmick. Aside from that, for picture quality, well, if you take pictures with good light, the pictures turn out okay. As soon as it gets dark or you're taking pictures somewhere where there isn't enough light, the pictures do become quite grainy, and this is the case with pretty much all the Chinese devices that we've seen. So these are a couple of pictures that I took with this phone. So as you can probably tell for yourself, they're average and nothing really special about them. And it's time to conclude this video. So if you're looking for a huge phone with a huge screen, this is probably it. I mean, it's pretty nice to watch movies on this phone, and if you're trying to like replace a tablet, this could probably do it. Playing games on the phone works pretty good, and with this big screen, the experience it's much better. However, the screen quality it's average, the camera it's average. The only good thing about the phone is basically the battery life and the build quality. Other than that, everything about this phone it's kind of average. Not to mention the horrible GPS unit inside it. So overall, it's yet another average phone from China, but for $150, considering that you get such a big screen, I guess it's kind of worth it. It really depends what you need in a phone. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did like it, don't forget to press that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.